just covered the first method for determining student eligibility for free and reduced price meals, the direct certification process. Now we're going to shift to the second method, which is determining eligibility when a household submits a free and reduced priced meal application. There are two ways a household can qualify through this process. The first one is income eligibility. So that's based on the household size and income as reported on the application. And the second way is through categorical eligibility. So some students are automatically eligible for free meals without needing to report their household income. This applies to students who participate in certain federal assistance programs or have specific circumstances, such as being foster children, homeless, migrant, or part of Head Start. In these cases, schools can approve free meal benefits without verifying income because the student's situation or program participation already qualifies them for free and reduced price meals. During this year's bookkeeper update, during this training, we are going to go over some general reminders about processing meal applications. This is especially important because during last school year's administrative reviews, we did identify several benefit issuance errors and incomplete meal applications. So this may be a review for some of you who are experienced in processing applications, but once again, even with those experienced schools, we did have some benefit issuance errors. So we wanted to cover some of these examples. But with that being said, we will not be covering in-depth examples or scenarios today. So if you're a new bookkeeper on this training, or if you would just like a good refresher, we do strongly encourage you to attend the July 29th bookkeeper training, where we will go over more details on processing income applications and go through some hands-on examples of how to complete those. So, and remember, if you have any questions, if you ever have any questions about determining eligibility, you can always reach out to one of the program specialists listed on the contact sheet if you come across an application question before that July 29th training. As we prepare for the upcoming school year, I want to highlight where you can find the updated forms needed for processing free and reduced price meal applications. All forms for school year 25-26 have been updated, and they are now posted on the NDE Nutrition Services website. To access them, you're going to go to the School Meals Program section on the left side of the Nutrition Services homepage, highlighted on the left side of the screen here. You can then click on Forms and Resources, and from there you're going to select Application Income Eligibility, and that will bring you to the section containing attachments A through L. So here, the key updated documents you'll find are Attachment A, which are the income eligibility guidelines. Attachment B, the template letter to households. Attachment C, the meal application itself. Attachment D, the approval denial letter. Attachment D3, a notice of change in benefits, and attachments L and L1, which are sharing of information waivers. These forms are available in Word format, which means you can easily customize them by inserting your school's name, updating the date, and adding any other local information. And to make this even easier, you can refer to your handout packet, pages 80, 89, and 90 in your handout packet. This includes a direct link to the attachments A through L page and screenshots showing you exactly where to locate these forms. So if you're trying to locate them later, you can go back to your handouts and be familiar with where to find these. I did want to mention the attachments B1, B-1 and C-1 are for special milk schools. So if you do not participate in the school lunch program, or if you only operate the special milk program, then you will get information about that from another one of our program specialists. But those are specific if you were just operating the special milk program. I also want to point out that nutrition services offer Spanish translations of several key forms. So these are available on the same website we just discussed, and the specific location is listed on the slide for this slide for your reference. In addition to Spanish, the USDA free and reduced priced meal application is available in many different languages. So this helps ensure that all households can access and understand the application process regardless of their primary language. So just be sure to utilize these resources to help support your diverse school communities. The next handout in your packet is Attachment C, the school year 25-26 free and reduced priced meal application. You can find it on page 91 and 92 of your handout packet. A few important points about this application are it can be distributed to households by mail, email, or included in a back to school packet starting on or after July 1st of the current school year. So we're past July 1st now, so you can go ahead and start distributing these to households. Schools cannot require households to complete either a paper or an online application. Completion of the application does need to be voluntary. If a household is directly certified, they do not need to complete an application. So the only exception to this, which Aspen talked about, would be if a student is directly certified for Medicaid reduced benefits, meaning they're getting reduced benefits, and they want to apply for free meal benefits, they can do that by filling out a paper meal application. And if they qualify for free meal benefits based on the paper application, you would give the student the highest benefit. So you would give them the free benefit in that scenario. So if a student does not appear on the direct certification list, the household must be provided with the following documents. Attachment B is the letter to households with instructions on filling out the application. Attachment C is the actual free and reduced priced meal application. And then there are also some optional forms you may want to include. The first one is Attachment E for self-employed individuals. Attachment L is a sharing of information waiver. On this waiver, you can enter specific programs or, you know, other things that if you want to share the free and reduced priced information with other programs, then you can enter those programs that are specific to your school on this form, and the family can fill it out, and then you would be allowed to share the free and reduced priced information. Attachment L1 is the sharing information with Medicaid. So this one you're just going to keep on file. They only fill it out if they do not want their information to be shared with Medicaid. So if someone from DHHS or the Children's Health Insurance Program reaches out to your school asking for a list of free and reduced price students, you can share that information. But if they have filled out this attachment L1 and the family does not want their information to be shared, then they would fill this out and you would keep that on file and not share their information in that situation. Please remember that these forms are updated annually, so always be sure you're using the most current versions. You are allowed to add your school's contact information, fill in any fillable portions. Like I said, customize the programs listed in attachment L to match what's offered at your school. However, it is important that you do not edit the core content of the forms or don't change any other information on these forms. And you can find hard copies of all these in your handout packet on pages 93 to 99 if you want to look through those. But the fillable portions that you'll want to download so you can fill in your school's information are located on our website. Schools opting into the community eligibility provision, or CEP, should not distribute meal applications. The NDE, Nebraska Department of Education, will provide a template alternative income form for use by CEP schools. And the income eligibility applications household letter, attachment B, both English and Spanish, mentions that the summer EBT eligibility can be determined using the school meals application. So they are aware of that if they read attachment B, that the application is also used to determine summer EBT eligibility. If you're planning to use an online meal application, school food authorities or SFAs using an online income eligibility must request approval annually from the NDE Nutrition Services. We do need you to provide a copy of that electronic meal application to Aspen, and her email address is listed here on the screen. Our team will then review that application for completeness, make sure it contains all the required information, and issue a written approval. One thing to note is if you are using an online application, if this is an option for your students, you must also give them the option of completing a paper application. So not everyone has access to the internet or to a computer, so you do need to also provide an option for them to be able to complete a paper application as well. So let's take a more in-depth look at how households qualify for free or reduced priced meals with an application. There are two main categories for determining eligibility through meal applications. The first one is free or reduced priced eligibility based on income. The household would submit an application that lists all the household members along with the income received by each person in that household. The eligibility of free, reduced, or denied if they're over the income guidelines is determined by comparing that information to the current income eligibility guidelines, which we'll go over coming up here. The second way is free eligibility based on categorical eligibility. So if they're not directly certified, if they don't show up on your direct certification list, they can still be categorically eligible through a meal application. And this applies to specific non-income based situations where the child is eligible for free meals due to their circumstances or program participation. So the main types for this would be for foster children. The household submits an application identifying a student as a foster child. In this case, the free benefits are only for the foster child. Any other students listed on that application would then qualify based on the household size and income listed on that application. So foster benefits, just like for direct certification, do not extend to other household members. The next way would be a household application with a SNAP, TANF, or FDPIR case number. So in this case, a household's going to submit an application listing a master case number, and the eligibility extends to all children in the household. So all students listed on that application then would qualify for free meals if they list a SNAP, TANF, or FDPIR number. The next way is homeless, migrant, or runaway. In this case, the application submitted identifies the students as homeless, migrant, or runaway, and the household indicates on the application which program the child is under by checking the box. But the school district must obtain documentation to support the child's participation in one of these programs from officials of these programs. So for example, the district would need to contact your homeless liaison at your district for supporting documentation if the family is marked that the child is homeless on the application. On these applications, the eligibility does not extend to other household members, so the free meals are only for the student that is marked as homeless, migrant, or runaway on the application. And the last one is Head Start. This applies only to children verified as participating in Head Start. There's actually not a place to mark this on the application, but you would obtain a list from a Head Start official, and we'll talk about that coming up here. So These distinctions are important when reviewing and approving applications. So be sure to check whether the application is income-based or categorically eligible, and then process it accordingly. Once the application has been submitted, a school official must review the meal application to verify that it's complete and the information is accurate. So the following information is required information on the application. If any of the information listed here in either of these lists, depending on the type of application, is missing, that information must be obtained before the application can be processed, approved, or denied. So under income applications, these require, you can see a little bit more information. So you need the last 4 digits of the signing an adult social security number, or they need to mark the box that that there is no social security number, or they don't have a social security number. That's not a requirement to qualify for free or reduced price meals. They can mark that box, but either they have to list their number or mark the box. They need to list the current household income for every working, any income received in that household. They need to list the frequency of that income and then the source of that income. So and a list of all household members, including the child, and the signature of the adult household member completing the form. Categorical eligibility applications. To be complete, these applications must include the names of the children applying, a valid case number if they are applying through listing a master case number, and the signature of an adult household member. So a valid case number or an indication of status. So either their case number or their marking if they're foster, homeless, migrant, or runaway, and then the signature of the adult household member. Up next, in order to process the applications, we do ask that you date stamp the application on the day it's received. And that's because this date can then be used to determine when eligibility can begin. Applications must be processed and families notified of eligibility determination within 10 operating days of the time you receive the application when school is in session. And this timeline, like I said, that applies when school is in session. Applications must be approved based solely on the information submitted by the household. Do not add or assume any information that was not provided. So if you do have missing or unclear information, you'll want to follow up with that household, and be sure to document what information was received, the date it was received, and who received it. So all documentation, any additional documentation, should be noted directly on that application, and you can write that directly on there with the information that you received, the date, and your initials. For income applications, the official designated to make eligibility determinations is going to compare the total gross income and household size on the application to the free and reduced priced income guidelines, which are coming up on the next slide. For the purposes of our application process, we define income to include earned and unearned income received on a regular basis before any deductions. So before any deductions such as taxes, Social Security taxes, insurance premiums, charitable contributions, and bonds. It's also important to note that there are no deductions for expenses or hardship conditions. So this is based on gross income. And then household size is a group of related or non-related people living under one roof as an economic unit. And Aspen went over that a little bit more in her section as well. When reviewing an income-based application, you're going to want to use Attachment A, which is the income eligibility guidelines to determine if a household qualifies for free or reduced price meal benefits. The income guidelines have been updated for school year 25-26, and those went into effect on July 1st of 2025, and they will remain in effect until June 30th of 2026. So make sure if you're using a software program to approve your meal application that those income guidelines have been updated and are in there correctly. This Attachment A, this document is included in your handouts on page 100. As you can see, the income limits are listed by different time periods. So it's listed as either by annual, monthly, twice a month, every 2 weeks, and weekly. So make sure you're comparing the household's income to the correct frequency. Families may qualify for free or reduced price meals if their income is at or below the level shown. Another important thing to note here is Attachment A is not to be shared with households. It's an internal tool for schools to use. So households will see an income chart on page 2 of Attachment C, the meal application, and that chart reflects the reduced priced income guidelines. So it gives them a general idea as to whether they would qualify or not, but it doesn't specifically, divide it out as to whether they would qualify for free or reduced priced meals. So this Attachment A is for your internal use in processing meal applications. Households can report income in any increment, so they can report it, if they're receiving it weekly or if they're receiving it biweekly, every other week, monthly, or annually. If multiple frequencies of income are reported, you're going to convert all income to an annual amount. So if they've listed some income as weekly, some income as monthly, you're going to want to convert everything to an annual amount. If a household reports a single frequency of income, then no conversion is required. You do not need to report it or convert it to an annual amount. So don't convert it to an annual income. If they've listed all their income as monthly, just look at the monthly income and then compare that to the monthly income on your Attachment A. If you drop down to the bottom portion of the application, we have a household size of 5 listed on this this example here. And you can see they've listed a total income of $2,500 per month. If you look at the income Attachment A and locate a household size of 5 in the first column and slide across to the monthly income, you can see that the family qualifies for free meals because their income is at or below the amount listed under the free meals on the monthly column on Attachment A. The determining official at your schools, whoever's determining the eligibility, does need to complete the bottom portion of the application. So filling out that household size, the total income, the frequency, if you approved it based on monthly income or if you converted it to annually. And then you also need to sign and date the application. So for categorical eligibility using case numbers for SNAP, TANF, or FDPIR, the official determines if the case number is in the correct format. So in our case, you would approve the application for free meals based on the household's receipt of benefits from one of these programs, and then all children are certified for free meals. If a household qualifies for SNAP, which stands for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, TANF, the Temporary Assistance to Needy Families, or FDPIR, the Food Distribution Program on Indian reservations, they must list their household's master case number. There is a single box on the application to report the number. You will be looking for a 5 to 9 digit number. So we typically see 6 digits. If it's more than, 5 to 6, it's typically because they've listed the leading zeros preceding their number. And households reporting a master case number automatically qualify for free meals. So all children in the household are eligible for free meals based on any household member's receipt of SNAP, TANF, or FDPR benefits. You can accept the master case number that they've listed at face value if it's 5 to 9 digits. You don't need to go out and verify. Just make sure it's not longer, or it's not a social. You can kind of tell if it's like a social security number listed, or a longer number, maybe their Medicaid number or their EBT card number. Those you cannot accept. But if it's 5 to 9 digits, if it's 9, it's those, and it has those preceding zeros, you can accept the application at face value. Hopefully you don't get a whole lot of these now with the direct certification system. A lot of students are probably matched through the direct certification system, but if you do, you can go ahead and approve it based on the master case number. For categorical eligibility based on other programs such as homeless, migrant, and runaway, the official determines eligibility based on supporting documentation for each child based on their participation in these programs. So their eligibility for these programs is not extended to other children in the household. The household may submit income information for any other children listed on the application. Homeless, migrant, or runaway children do automatically qualify for free meals. However, the district is required to have some additional documentation on file. Acceptable documentation includes the district's information from a migrant coordinator or the district's homeless runaway liaison. So you would just need to get documentation from one of them before certifying the child as eligible for free meals. Eligibility, like I said, of other children in the household is based on the household size and income. The next category we will talk about is processing an application with foster children. A foster child is defined as one whose care or placement is the responsibility of the state, or who is placed by a court with a caretaker household. This does not apply to informal arrangements that may exist outside of the court system. So when processing an application with foster children, keep in mind that foster children do automatically qualify for free meals. And for foster children, no additional documentation is required to confirm their eligibility. So, for homeless, migrant, and runaway, you do have to have that additional documentation. For foster children, if they've listed the foster child's name and marked the box that it's a foster child, you can go ahead and process that application without any additional documentation. Eligibility of other children in the household. So if there are other children besides the foster children listed on the application, you would then use the household size and income, including the foster child's personal use income that they've listed on the application. So you could have two different eligibility determinations on a foster child application. Maybe the foster child qualifies for free meals, but the other children, based on household size and income, let's say they qualify for reduced price meals. So you could have two different determinations on the same application. And finally, determining categorical eligibility using Head Start. Head Start students qualify for free meals. Enrollment in Head Start does not need to be identified on the application. There's no box like there is for homeless, migrant, runaway, or foster children. There's no box for them to mark Head Start. So a child participating in Head Start is not determined eligible for free meals until the LEA or your school, your district documents the child's status with a Head Start program official. And this required documentation could just be a list of participants by a Head Start official. So if you obtain that list from the Head Start official, you can qualify those students for free meals. So if you have not date stamped the application at the time you receive it, then the approval date is going to be the date that eligibility can be extended. So that's why it's important, to date stamp those applications. At the bottom of the application, you are going to, where it says, do not fill out the section below, that's for the families. This section's for school use only. So you are going, or whoever determines the eligibility is going to sign the application and date the application. The date does need to include the month, day, and year. So that date shows the date that it was approved. And if, like I said, if you didn't date stamp it, then that's also going to be the date that they are eligible for free or reduced price meals. So make sure we had an issue with some schools just writing like August 2025. We do need the day as well. That also shows that, it was processed within those 10 days of receiving it. Once the application has been reviewed, every household that applies must be notified in writing of the results. The notice of approval denial letter, which is attachment D, can be used to notify households who applied with either a meal application or, like Aspen said, you would also use this if they are directly certified. An example of attachment D is shown on the right-hand side of the screen, and there's also a hard copy of the form included in your handout packet. So you can see on the first two, there are two different options that are approved for free meals based on if you're filling it out based on the household meal application, you would check that first box. Same thing for the reduced price. If it's based on the household application, you're going to check that first box under reduced. If they are over those income guidelines, then you would mark it as denied, or if they submitted an incomplete application, so it didn't include all the information that we talked about needs to be included, that's required by the USDA to be included on a complete application, then you could also do that. You could also mark it as denied for that if you weren't able to follow up with the family and obtain the missing information. Just a few free and reduced price meal applications. You cannot accept applications completed before July 1st for the current school year. So it's after July 1st now, so that shouldn't be an issue. But households can submit an application at any time during the school year. So if their situation changes, someone loses a job or something like that, they originally didn't qualify for free or reduced price meals, but something about their situation has changed, they can submit a household application at any time during the school year. If a student's name appears on the direct certification list and the school also receives an application that qualifies the student for the same benefit, so they're on the direct certification list as free, you get an application that also qualifies them as free, the direct certification is going to take precedence over a household application. You always want to give the student the highest benefit. So if it's not the same benefit and the household application would, qualify them for free meals, then you would take the application in that situation. Applications can be shared between SFAs or school food authorities. Eligibility determinations are valid for the entire school year. So just like for direct certification, it is year-long eligibility. You'll want to keep all applications received on file. We do recommend that you file them alphabetically by free, reduced, and denied. and keep any applications from the directly certified households separate. That'll become important when you do verification. Applications for households that have withdrawn from the district must have the withdrawal date recorded and are filed separately. If you need to notify families of a change to their benefits, you would use attachment D3, which is a notice of change in benefits. Some reasons that the benefits may change. Maybe the family provides new information. Like I said, something about their situation changes and they now qualify for an increase in benefits. Or maybe an error was made in processing their application and you figure that out later after you've already sent them their approval letter. You would notify them of a change in benefits. If their benefits are going to be reduced or terminated, you do need to give them a 10 calendar days written notice before that change can be effective. If their benefits are to be increased, then the change should go into effect immediately. And remember, due to year-long eligibility, households are not required to report changes in income, household size, or their participation in a program that would affect their eligibility status. And finally, we just have a handout in your packet on page 105 that goes through, just summarizes the determining eligibility process. So direct certification, that process is on the left. If you're determining eligibility by free and reduced price meal applications, that process is on the right. So just a little summary for you to keep handy as to the steps that you need to determine that you need to follow when you're determining eligibility. Remember, for both of these processes, that the last step is going to be to update their eligibility status in your student information system. So make sure that you transfer those benefit determinations from either your direct certification list or the application into your student information system to ensure that students are being charged correctly for their meals.